Hello everyone, welcome to the very first video on business analysis. When it comes to business analysis, first of all, we need to understand the company business model. Understanding the company business model is about answering these following questions. First, from the supplier side, we need to know what it takes to create the products and services. What kind of raw materials are needed to create the products? What kind of labors and technical know-how to create the products or to sell the service? Is there any design, tools, and manufacturing know-how to create the products? And then to the customer side, we need to know what it takes to sell the product or services. What is the company marketing strategy? What is the company distribution channel? What is the way the company deliver the service to the customer? And then from the customer to the company, we need to know how and what the customer pays. What is the pricing mechanism? What is the payment method and timing that is involved? For the business model, it's good to draw a flow chart of the company business model because by doing this, we'll know the supply chain, who are the customer, the supplier, and the key partners. And we also know how the company earns their revenue. So for example, a property developer business model flowchart will look like this. So the property developer will get their land from the government, and then once they get the land, they will engage designer and construction companies for their construction services and consultancy services, and then they will help to create the products, which is a building in this case. And once the building is finished built, they will sell the property to the institution or individual in the primary market. Of course, some property developer is also involved in property investment business. They will lease part of the buildings to institutions and individuals. So by doing this, we will understand more about the company's business model flowchart. Then, some companies recognize their sales revenue in a very different way. It is determined from their pricing mechanism and channel. So there are companies recognize their sales revenue through transaction base. There are also companies recognize their sales revenue in terms of percentage of completion of the project. There are also companies that recognize their sales revenue through the recurring method. For the transaction-based sales recognition, this company earns their sales from one-time customer payment. For example, Jumbo Group and Old Chunky, these are the food retail group and restaurant that earns the revenue from the customer through one-time payment for selling their snacks or selling the food. And then for the company that earns their revenue from percentage of contract that has been fulfilled, those companies are usually project-based company. So for example, property developer like City Development Limited. There are also companies earns their sales revenue from ongoing payment from continuing their service or after sales service to the customer. This kind of company, the sales revenue is more predictable. So for example, Silverlight exists. This IT service provider earns their revenue from ongoing IT services to the bank and financial institution. Let's do a case study on Micromechanics. Micromechanics is a Singapore listed company. In this company is involved in semiconductor tooling business. So this company designs, manufactures, and markets high precision tools, assemblies, and consumable parts that are used in process critical applications for the wafer fabrication, assembly, and testing process of the semiconductor industry. So these are the parts that company design and manufactures for their customer. And this company has 5 manufacturing facilities, so in Singapore, Malaysia, China, and US. Let us understand more about the semiconductor industry. So before the semiconductor chip is sold to the customer, it has to go through these three processes. There will be a company that does the circuit design. Once the design is completed, then it will be sent towards wafer fabrication. Usually we refer this to the front end process. So this company will do the masking, film deposition, lithography, and aging. So at the end of this process, there will be a wafer finish build. Then this wafer will be sent to the assembly and testing process. Assembly and testing process is a back-end process, whereby this process, the wafer will go through the probing, dicing, die attach, wire bond, encapsulations, and testing. And at the end of this process, a chip will be finished built. So we know that our mobile phones, computers, and electronic device contains semiconductor chips, and these semiconductor chips come from the manufacturer itself, and this manufacturer get the raw materials to manufacture the chips. Of course, there are test equipment and the manufacturing equipment, they are involved in manufacturing the chips. Inside the equipment, there are parts and the tools that are used. So for this company, Micron Mechanics, they design and manufacture these parts and tools that are used in the test equipment. Shown below is a die attach process, and Micron Mechanics, they design and manufacture this pickup tool to pick up the wafer die, and then the attach die, and then before it goes to the next process. And this pickup tool has to be replaced every 8 hours so that the contamination can be contained. It's a highly consumable in nature. They produce the parts and tools such as die attach tools, which make about 60% of the sales revenue. They also design the wire bonding tools and the precision parts and tools used in wafer fabrication. Because their products are highly consumable by nature and they have to be replaced every 8-hour shift by the customer, that means the demand for their product is highly recurrent, and the demand for the product depends on the output of the semiconductor chips. So I can say the company's sales recognition is more like a recurring in nature. So this is something that we prefer because it's predictable. So we prefer to invest in the company with a very simple business model, meaning the business model can be explained easily in less than 3 minutes, and it is a repeatable and recurring business, meaning there is a stable and continuous predictable demand. Not the companies that whereby the customer have to buy the product only once. Not those kind of company there is no stable or continuous demand. And we also prefer to invest in a company that has a proven track record of at least one business cycle, because a business model should work in good and the bad times. Of course, we prefer to invest in the business with scalable in nature because it allows the company to expand easily. Of course, this business model should allow the company to continually gain market share without excessive price concession or too much risk taking. So these kind of characteristics are those characteristics that we prefer to see in our investment. So in the next video, I will show you how we can identify the company competitive advantage, because if the company has a competitive advantage, it will ensure that the long-term profitability. I will see you in the next video.